Hello everyone, this is the video for the end of week 2. I've got a couple things that I want to cover, what you guys just are about to finish, what's going to come up next week, things about due dates and submitting correct work, showing work, plagiarism, and then some things that I want everyone to keep a note of now that we're getting out of chapter 3 and into chapter 4. Okay. So the first thing, what you guys are getting out of and into, we're at the end of chapter 3. Chapter 3, I believe I've repeated before, deals with how to take a derivative, right? And you've been just picking up methods over and over and over again for how to find a derivative, right? Which is the biggest part of Calc 1, right? So you're not quite done. I think next week is going to be the last 1 or 2 sections of chapter 3. And then you guys are going to jump into chapter 4, which deals with applications of derivatives. So the computational portion that's finishing up with chapter 3, right, is going to start to turn into more application-based stuff, more word problems, unfortunately. So there's going to be a fair amount of interpreting and writing stuff out in context of the problem, right? I like to say what I like to say for these kind of problems is that the derivatives, the calculus, the actual computational portions, right? They're going to get easier. The hard part is turning that sort of the mathy language into into application. That's it. Okay. So that's what's going to happen next week. Also next week, what I want to put on everybody's radar is exam 1's going to happen. Okay. I will make a video of that separately. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Stay tuned. The first thing I want to talk about in terms of the things that I've seen from the last 2 weeks, due dates and submitting correct work. I think I've mentioned before, due dates, they are more of a satisfactory progress rather than a fixed schedule. I am not grading things exactly after the due date. I do let maybe 3-4 days pass. Okay. Now, I do want to say this. I am letting 3-4 days pass, right? And that is the maximum amount of grace I think I can allow in a summer class. Okay. I think there's been a couple of you that have emailed me about extensions and getting more time for work. A week in summer, so a Monday through Thursday, is about almost 3 weeks, almost a month worth in a regular semester. So, not turning in an entire week's worth of material is tantamount to missing almost a month's worth of class in a regular semester. And unfortunately, that is not that's not good. That's not good. For those of you that have been falling behind, hopefully it's not too much. I would highly suggest, doing some sort of crash course somehow, some way. I know this is the worst way to say it in a summer course, but you got to speed it up. Okay. With that being said, some students have submitted some work that doesn't belong to that section. So for example, while doing the quick checks, somebody put in, or a couple people have put in, instead of putting in the quick checks, they put in the lecture questions for a previous section. Just double check. I wouldn't want to give you a 0 because you turned in the wrong thing solely because you were messing on your cell phone incorrectly, right? So make sure that you double check what you submit. Yeah, okay. Second thing, showing work. So we are doing, at the moment, at the end of week 2, you guys have seen product rule, quotient rule, chain rule, and then all of the various different derivatives for polynomials, trigonometric stuff, right? Eventually, what's going to be expected of you, right, is to be very short with your work. Okay. What I mean by that is, if you look at a function and it's going to be product rule, you can go ahead and write out the product rule, right? Just write out the final, answer, right? But until then, I do need to see some semblance of basically knowing what you're trying to do. Okay. So if you're using the product rule, if you're using the quotient rule, if you're using the chain rule, give me some semblance of what you're assigning what, right? So for the product rule, there's got to be a first and a second, right? For quotient rule, there's got to be a top and the bottom, and then you have to take the derivative of both, right? For the chain rule, there's got to be an inside and the outside. Give me some semblance of that, okay? It doesn't have to be entirely, completely. I mean, that's the best option, right? Have it completely written out. But it's not entirely necessary, so long as you give me some inkling toward you're assigning this to that and this to that. Okay. Third thing, plagiarism. So, this is a fairly big deal, especially with online classes like this one. And this is the drawback behind a online class. Okay. I cannot police what you are and are not using on your end, right, of the computer screen. You can, and don't get me wrong, I have used these numerous times. I actually encourage it, right? You can use Chegg. You can use Symbolab. You can use Wolfram Alpha. Okay, you can use all of those to double check your work. That is fine. Okay, however, using those programs as the one sole method of you providing work, right? That is against academic honesty, and I will penalize that to the fullest extent that I'm allowed. Okay. The thing that I'd like to say for this is, I'm not going to police it. I am not. But I will enforce it if I see it. Okay. So case in point, I believe in a couple of the quick checks in chapter 2 and in some of the quick checks in the beginning of chapter 3, people were using methods that are not presented yet. You learn the methods at the very end of Calculus 1. I haven't shown you those yet, so you're not allowed to use them. This is sort of bar none the best sort of poster case for all of these. This tells me that you're looking at other sources for your solutions. Okay, like I said, I don't mind that you double check your work with them, okay? But they should not be the source of your thinking, right? So make sure that you're able to do the assignments that I'm providing using your own noggin, okay? Especially the quick checks. The quick checks are supposed to be for you to be wrong. So I want you to take a stab at it without using any outside help. Okay. So plagiarism. Okay, just don't do it. Don't do it. Okay. And that brings me to my last point. Not so much about plagiarism, but in the sort of, I don't want to say cases of plagiarism that I've seen up to now, some of you guys have been using techniques that weren't presented up to that point. Does that make sense? But now after chapter 3, in particular after section 3.3, you're allowed to use them. Okay. In particular, all those shortcuts, all of those quick ways to figure out a derivative, right? Those are now all open to you. Okay. Use them. Okay. Use them a lot. And this brings me up to a second point, sort of related. following directions. Okay. So in some of the quick checks before 3.3, so 3.2, 3.1, some of you were using the shortcuts when the method that was only available to you up to section 3.1, 3.2 was by the definition of the derivative. So the definition of the derivative is that limit as h approaches 0 of f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. That is the definition of the derivative, right? Up to 3.2, you needed to do the derivative in that manner, okay? After, let me say it this way. From 3.3 on, you can do the shortcuts. So you can do the n drops down and then the n minus 1 and yeah, all that stuff, okay? All of the rules, product rule, quotient rule, chain rule, right? Those are all technically shortcuts to the definition of the derivative, okay? So please read the directions on the problems. This is going to be a big point when I start looking at the write-ups for your exam, and that'll come in another video, okay? Besides that is it. I kind of have to remind everybody, I have office hours from 12 to 2, Monday through Thursday. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I am going to be on campus if you guys want a physical body to talk to, okay? Outside of that, so Mondays and Thursdays, I'll be on my Zoom, okay? That is it. Hopefully everybody's doing okay in the class. Like I said, any other communications that you guys want to have with me, through email. Cool? All right. And I'll see you guys out there.